I'm Meg Alexander. I'm from Power to Fly, and I am going to be your host for today's chat and learn session. Now, I am incredibly excited to get to introduce you to our speaker. But before we do that, I want to go over a couple quick housekeeping items for everyone. So the first thing I want to tell you all about and highlight is participation. These events are entirely about you, and we want to make sure that you get the most out of them. So you can feel free to participate in a couple different ways. You can always share your smiling maskless faces with us safely if you'd like to turn your cameras on. Now, no pressure to look Instagram perfect. I'm on day 4 of dry shampoo and messy bun. So whether you are working with a non-traditional workspace, furry coworkers, if you have a child supervisor who is, begging for Cheerios, whatever you got going on, please feel free to bring it to us. We want to meet you where you are. Now, if you want to participate, but you don't want to turn your camera on, totally fine, completely understandable. You can always type any questions or comments you have into the Zoom chat. You'll be able to find that as part of your Zoom toolbar. Now, if you do have any kind of privacy concerns or anything, if you do turn on your camera today, as long as you don't come off mute, you will not show up on either the live stream to our YouTube channel on our website or the recording that we'll post later on. So just as an FYI there, in case you have any concerns. Now, today's session is being recorded, like I said earlier, and what that means for all of you is that you get to kick back in and relax. You don't have to take notes. You don't have to worry about missing, a reference someone makes or a resource they might share. You can always come back and rewatch that recording later. Now, what's going to happen is everybody that registered for today's session is going to get an email from us in 1 to 2 business days. So I would say likely Monday next week. And that will have a link to where you can rewatch this recording when it gets posted on our website. Now, if Kat says something today that is just so amazing, something that like you've never heard before, oh, you be quiet, you'll be surprised. Like if you've never heard, like she'll say something, I guarantee it, and you will want to tell a friend or a relative or a coworker right away. You don't have to wait those 1 to 2 business days. So we are live streaming to our YouTube channel. I'll be sharing the link for that with y'all here in just a few minutes. But you can always head over there and view this recording, usually within about 5 to 15 minutes of the end of the live stream, it gets posted. So you can always share that. And whether you visit us on our YouTube channel or on our website, we have an entire archive, whole library of our recorded chats. The website has the full archives. The YouTube channel only has partials, but you can always search either place and find even more great content like this. Now, like I said earlier, you can feel free to share questions, comments, anything you got in the chat thread. If you would like to ask a question or raise a comment and you'd like to be kept anonymous, no problems. Just make sure that you send your message to me in the DMs instead of sending to everybody. You'll find Meg Alexander in the drop-down menu. Now, I did mention our YouTube channel, but we have various other social media platforms we are a part of. We are at Power to Fly on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you would like, I very much encourage you to check out our other social media platforms. We share all kinds of amazing content, great blog posts, expert advice, job recommendations, job listings, all kinds of stuff. So please feel free to follow us and check us out there. And we'd love it if you shared with your community that you are learning with Power to Fly. So you're highly encouraged to take photos or video as we go and share out with your social network. We want to do our best to spread knowledge about these resources because they're free and we want them available to everyone who needs them. So thank you so much for your participation and for any love or good vibes you'd like to put out there for us. Now, our guest today is here on behalf of GameChanger. Again, I'm going to be sharing links to their company page in just a moment with y'all, which is actually what you're looking at now. That's going to be what GameChanger's company page will look like once you visit the link. Now, on this page, you can do a couple really great things. You can check out their about for more information. Maybe if you're unfamiliar about what GameChanger does, you can look up information about their benefits. Cheers, Lord. English is hard today, which is bad when it's the only language you speak. The events tab will show you past events that they have partnered on with us. It'll also show you if we've got future events planned with them. So a really great, tool there, like if you've got an interview with someone at GameChanger and you want to be able to mention something that maybe isn't the news that's, top of most people's, like LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. So really great resources for all of you. And then obviously you can check out their open roles. You can apply to jobs right from our website. And one of the things that I like to highlight for our attendees that you might not know, at the top right-hand corner of every company page on Power to Fly, including GameChanger, there is a big pink button that says follow. Now, if you click that button, it's going to do some really great things for you. But basically what it does is it works like your friend at GameChanger. So it's going to let the GameChanger org know that you are interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. But it's also going to allow us to keep you posted when they post new roles. So what that means is if you are actively seeking and don't see anything that would really suit you on that, on their open roles right now, it doesn't matter. You can always just kind of hit that follow button, and then we will take care of the rest. We'll make sure that you know when they've got new roles. We'll make sure that you are up to date and you don't feel like you've missed out on anything. Now, I'm very, very excited to introduce you to our speaker. Now, Kat is joining us today, and I can't wait to get started. She's the analytics manager at GameChanger, and GameChanger was just named as one of Fast Company's top 10 most innovative sports companies. Now, while Kat's team spans across data engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, and embedded product data analysis, they are all passionate about finding new ways to combine data, tech, and research to better answer challenging questions. Kat's past lives include being a central banker, a congressional aide, and a grassroots organizer. I got to speak with her a couple days ago, was absolutely charmed. I think you all are going to be as well. Kat, I am so happy to have you here with us today. Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience before we dive into questions?
Hi, Megan. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you all for joining and spending some of your precious time with us. Hopefully this will be useful in some way, and feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. I love meeting new people. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kat. All right, last thing before we dive into questions are some of the main takeaways you can expect to get from today's session. Now, these are what we're going to try and cover, but if you have additional questions, or if you asked a question when you registered and you're not sure if we're going to get to it, ask it in the chat. If something that Kat says today, you want to expand on that, or you're not quite sure about a term that she used, throw it into the chat. Let us know. I want to make sure that I get y'all answers, but I can't do that if I don't know what you want to know. So all of that to say, we're going to try and cover these, but you all have the power to drive today's conversation. Now, we're going to discuss some soft skills or life skills that would be able to help you successfully pivot into data, as well as some of the hard skills that you should start developing if this is a goal of yours. We're going to discuss what some of the entry-level positions you can aim for and what to look out for when you're looking for that entry-level role in data. And then we're going to talk about how you can best present that non-traditional background of yours during the interview process. Now, this can be kind of a large topic to get started on. So Kat, to start us out, I want to talk a little bit more about what your journey was like. Can you share with us, what was one of the bigger challenges that you faced when pivoting from a non-technical field? And maybe share with us how you overcame that challenge or that hurdle.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. So I think for me, the biggest challenge was really getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Not just being okay with not knowing, but embracing that feeling and using that as a way to kind of gauge your own development. So sort of a couple hows, right? Tactically, having a confident but humble mindset. So I don't know yet, but I know I can figure it out. Practice breaking up chunky problems into small incremental steps that will allow you to learn and adjust as you go. So then your big problem, it's not just one big problem that you have to solve, it's breaking it down. All right, I'm going to solve this little piece, and that's going to give me some additional information on where I need to go next. This is, and before you get sucked into like the technical weeds, right, let me be really clear on the bigger picture why. Because if I have that why, that is my sort of like homing beacon. That gives me directionally where I need to go. And that's how I can gauge if I'm in the right direction. These are these are things that you apply to not just the big moments in your life, but the small moments, and especially the small moments. You have to just keep practicing. It's a muscle. And it doesn't end, right? Just This isn't something you do just to pivot into a new field. This is something you keep doing every day, every hour, and it remains a challenge for me as I continue to progress in data and tech.
I think that's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that with us, because I feel like there are a lot of people that want to talk about, ways to transition into this, but maybe it's not as much talked about when we're looking more closely at things like what might go wrong or what might not be the way you want it to proceed. So yeah, I think that's wonderful. And you're right, that attitude of I don't know yet is massive, right? Like that one word kind of changes the entire attitude behind the statement and makes it less of like, no, I don't know, and turns it more into like, I don't know, but that's interesting. Or I can see how this is something that will be useful for me to know, or I want to find that answer for you. So yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I like how you likened it to kind of that muscle memory, because it is hard, right? It is really hard when you're trying to figure out either how to overcome a problem or tackle something new. And so I very much love that analogy. Thank you for sharing that here.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about confidence. Now, when you're pivoting into a new space, I have done this many times in my career, and I can absolutely concur that it feels very weird, and it's very easy to not realize how little confidence you maybe have in yourself when you're pivoting. A lot of people had questions around how you would regain or reinforce that confidence, especially when you're trying to pivot into a very analytic driven career. The person that wrote in with this question specifically said, I have a humanities degree and I find myself stuck in the mentality that my skills will not be a match for someone with a STEM degree. How do you recommend somebody maybe like kind of change their perspective on this?
Yeah. So first thing is like, yes, there is some base level of quantitative skills that you need to have just to be competitive, right? So you can't come in not knowing any code, not knowing any like foundations of coding or anything like that, right? So basically, can you write some code that someone else is going to be willing to read and review? Because you're not going to be doing this in isolation. That's one. And you're going to want to learn. So you're going to want someone to help teach you, and you want to make it easy for other people to teach you and want to teach you. Can you readily explain what your code is doing to someone else, or at least what you think it's doing, right? It's about making sure that you have the skills to learn whatever technical skill sets you are missing out currently. And how to keep doing that. Because again, it's not just like for this one role, you're going to have to keep learning new technical things. So some base level and some way that you can learn what you don't know yet there. Beyond that, the skill set that you need to be successful is not STEM specific whatsoever. It's less about what you currently know, what your pool of knowledge that you currently hold is, and more about, do you know how to go and learn new things? Do you know how to dig through Google search or Stack Overflow to find your answers? Do you know how to do it in a way that is going to allow you to eventually come down and like go down a couple rabbit holes? Sure, but bring yourself back up. It's the data and tech space is so dynamic. It is not possible for you to always be up to date on the latest and greatest tools, technologies, whatever it is. It's just not possible. What is possible though, is you can say, cool, this is the thing I need to go learn now. And then I have the tools to figure out what I need to learn. I know who to ask. I know how to ask these questions. And I'm going to run into some dead ends, but I'm not going to give up. And I will eventually triangulate my way through it. That's really important. What's also really important is you have these results, right? You wrote a code or query, right? You ran it ran successfully. Now you have this output. You have to interpret those results. You have to communicate them effectively to whoever your stakeholders are. And you have to meet them at their level of tech and data comfort, not yours. So at that point, it's not about your STEM degree. it's about your ability to interact with other people. And that's why soft skills are critical to having a satisfying career in data and tech. So, I mean, soft skills, that's just life skills, right? And so that's what you rely on to be successful in your first role and how you keep excelling in data and tech afterwards. And that's like stuff like, how do you deal with a difficult situation, difficult people, how to have hard conversations with colleagues, how do you manage up, down, and across, how do you connect with other people, especially in this environment where remote work is so much more prevalent. And so, how do you identify colleagues that, are going to be allies and supports for you and that you can learn from and build those relationships? Those are sort of the most important pieces of actually getting your career off the ground.
I can't tell you how happy it makes me to hear you make that connection between soft skills and life skills, because this is one of those things that like we push and we try and highlight a lot, or at least I do, is like you develop skills by just being a person in the world. Whether you're on a career break, whether you are bouncing around between jobs, it doesn't matter, right? You are always picking up skills that are going to be vastly useful if you can take a step back and think about them in that bigger picture, right? Because I feel like a lot of us, we learn how to do things. And then once we know how to do it, at least maybe I'm projecting here, we think, well, if I know how to do it, it can't be that hard. And so then once we think it's not that hard, we diminish that skill and the worthiness of it in our eyes. So I think that is really, really great to kind of like call out that these soft skills, you are developing them constantly. You're using them, you're flexing them. Make them work for you. Make them work for you in a way that is going to help you with this transition.
Yeah, and the transition isn't like these soft skills, these life skills. That's one of the superpowers of people with non-traditional backgrounds. They have a diversity of experience that other people don't have. They have met and interacted with people across different walks of life. They get people in a different way. Like this job, any analytics job, right? Like, yes, you have to code and you have to like put stuff together, fine. But it's about taking those results and being able to tell a story with them to the other person and tell it in a way that resonates with that other person.
Yeah. We
do that all the time in our lives, right? It's just you're doing it a little bit more specifically with data. And these are skills that are really difficult to teach. I can teach someone, how to get from basic SQL to more advanced SQL. It just takes time.
Yeah.
I can't say the same about these life skills, right? Yeah. That's not something I can guarantee.
In a lot of ways, just develop at work, right?
No, you can't, and it takes time to develop, and and it takes being in a lot of different situations in order to really develop it. Totally, like if you've ever had a service industry job, if you've ever been an assistant, if you've ever been a teacher, when I look at resumes and I see, you think have about been in.
What are they not saying, right? You think about you have a lot more going on than you have let on here. Like there's a lot of
wrangling skills.
Oh my, seriously, teachers. Oh my gosh. Like the herding mentality alone, like, come on, you have to multitask. You are literally trying to get to reach people who don't want to be where they are. Like, so that I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. These are amazing.
If you can wrangle a class of kindergartners, you can wrangle product managers and engineering managers. Full stop. Full stop.
Yes. Mary in the chat is agreeing with you. Mary says, I didn't understand that working with people was my strength. Customer service, tutoring, teacher's assistant, community worker. Truly, if you have been in, like, and I can speak from customer service. I was a bartender for 5 years. I was a waitress for another 6. Like it's about communication. And if you are able to highlight the communication that you were able to achieve, That's massive. You can take a communication skill anywhere because all you're trying to figure out how to do is how to tell one group of people some information that another group of people has. And it might be you or it might not be.
Totally.
Yes.
And that communication skill is critical to extracting the right information from other people. So they actually, people can tell you what they want, but oftentimes you have to dig to know what they really want, right? They say one thing, especially with analytics, right? They say one thing, but really what they want is something else that's like similar, but not exactly the same. And so with good communication skills, you can get at the heart of that faster, earlier, and then actually be able to answer the question they really wanted. And that's the superpower. It's not answering a question that comes up on a card somewhere with a request.
Yeah.
It's what is it that these people really want? Understand that, and then you can use your coding skills to get you to that place. But you can't use your coding skills to get you there if you don't have the soft skills, the life skills to interpret it first.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, all right, so many of these chats I sit on, I do not have the technical expertise that the speaker does. A lot of times I have next to no idea what we're talking about, but I love them because I get to learn new things every time I do one of these. But I absolutely love the kind of comparison you're making between like, yes, the numbers, the numbers and the data that you're working with is vastly important, but that context around it and the connections that you're able to pull out of it from the people who are involved in wherever that data is, created is huge, right? You do want to be able to make that connection for these people, whether they are giving you data or like whether they're providing the data or whether they're just asking you to interpret so that they understand it.
Yeah. And one other quick point here is data is messy, especially data in tech. So really, at the end of the day, what makes your job, what makes you a success is, can you get your stakeholders to trust you? Because you're going to crunch numbers and you're going to give them answers, and they're not all going to be right. It's going to be, you will make mistakes. You will have either incomplete results or you have unsatisfactory results because you don't have the data, whatever it is. And that's when you fall back on the trust. It's like, all right, how do we go from here? How can I get you, the stakeholder, to be comfortable enough with what I'm saying and rely on me enough so that we don't have this constant second guessing back and forth, right? That is a life skill. That is not something you can learn through a textbook, period.
No. Okay, so we've talked about transferable skills a little bit here, especially in regards to communication. And we had a lot of people that wrote in with specific asks, right? Like, this is my background and I want to pivot into the tech industry. People who were teachers, recruiters, paralegals. Hi, paralegals. I did that for a while too. But like, seriously, like
I thought about paralegals for like a hot second.
Talk about thankless job. Oh my goodness. But like, truly, so like a lot of people want to know, like, what can I take the skills from this job? So let's look at that. How can we assess our own skills to identify what's transferable and what might not be?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, communication, interpersonal skills, so underrated. And actually, I had a professor who once said that an English degree can be just as useful, if not more so, for working at the Federal Reserve than having an economics degree. And it is very true, having worked in the Fed. I know I'm harping on the communication piece, but like, if you can't communicate effectively,
being a good storyteller relies on communication. Being able to deal with other people relies on communication. Keeping your boss apprised of what you're doing in a remote work environment, communication. These are, it's a recurring theme for a reason, right? It does underpin a lot of things.
Yeah. So for other examples, right? Like paralegals, attention to detail. Holy crap, so important. And really, it is a skill that is especially important in data and tech, when things move fast. You need to be, flexible, but still rigorous enough. And that's where the attention to detail comes in, because you could easily get sloppy. But as an analyst, your rigor is part of your credibility. That's really important. Learning on the job, right? Like, it doesn't matter what job it is. If you had something new thrown at you, how did you figure it out, right? How did you display grit or curiosity or creativity, right?
Creativity, that one's huge. People don't talk about that one enough. Creativity is massive. Curiosity too.
Both huge. So going back to the data and tech space, like at GameChanger, we are doing things that have never been done before, or they've been done in other places, but in really different ways. And we have to figure out how to adapt it. We are solving new problems, and we are finding new challenges. We are creating playbooks. So we need someone who is creative. We want someone who's creative. We want someone who I can just be like, hey, here's a meaty problem. Run with it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you need. I will support you, but I want you to own it. And I want you to just be creative and think of solutions that, we can try out. Really embracing. Have you learned from failures? Oh my God, huge, right?
Yes.
I would love to see a resume where someone wrote something like, I failed at this. I think that takes so much confidence, so much security in yourself.
Well, you realize you failed, and you're okay to talk about it.
You are self-aware enough, and you are open enough that, this is something you're learning from, clearly, if you're putting it out there. I would love that. I think that would make our, just our resumes so much more interesting and so much more real.
Yeah. Like, what did you learn? And this is how you could share it. That's it.
Yeah.
I feel like I say this a lot. There's a lot of these, like the little like snippets that I pull from different chats. And one of them was that if you're looking at someone who is very successful, you are looking at someone who has failed a lot, because we don't learn from success, right? Our brains are not wired to learn from success. We learn from failure.
No. Yes. We learn from failure, and like, you will fail all the time. If you want to go into data and tech, you will fail all the time. Some of the failures will be on you because it's like, hey, I fat fingered this, or I wrote this code wrong, or whatever. But a lot of it is going to be because of the work environment, right? This problem wasn't properly defined. It was too vague, and therefore we couldn't ever get the traction we needed to answer it. Or this question is great, we don't have the data for this, so here's what we can cobble together, right? You learn from all of those, and you have to just be like, well, it doesn't really matter. Let's just try it and we'll see.
Yeah. No, I think that's wonderful. And I love, we're just to re-highlight for anybody who might not have caught it. You had a really great, kind of call out for some transferable skills. So I'm going to read those back to everybody, because I've been taking notes in the background too. But if you hear one that like you think applies to the job you have now, shout out in the chat. Tell me. I want to know what you do now that this is like a soft skill that you practice. Some of the ones you said were learning on the job, curiosity, grit, creativity, attention to detail. I think that you had listed another one of like being agile or being resilient, taking pride in your work output, that kind of thing. If this is something that you do in your daily job now, or is a skill that you have or are trying to develop, let us know. I want to know where you what are you doing now, and which skills are you using? Because these are huge. They're free. I mean, they're transferable for a reason, right? Because there's things that can impact or can be kind of looped into pretty much any industry that you're looking at.
And if you have an industry, I was going to say, if you have an industry and you're like, I don't know, throw it in. Maybe we can brainstorm.
Yeah. If we haven't talked about your industry, throw it in the chat. We can try and brainstorm and crowdsource some solutions here. Okay, so we talked about resumes, right? And you said something about how what you wanted to see, what you'd love to see in a different resume. Do you have any tips for people who are trying to showcase the relevant experience in that resume, especially like we talked about coming from a non-traditional background?
Yeah. So first and foremost, make your resume stupid easy for someone to glance at for 5 to 10 seconds and understand your story. If that means you have to put 2 sentences at the top with like this is what I'm about, do that. If it means changing up your bullets, cleaning them up so they're short and impact based or learning based as opposed to descriptions of your actual job, do that. And more so than anything else is you have to do the work to know and understand your story and be able to communicate that effectively out, especially if you're non-traditional, right? There's a reason why you want to do this. What is that reason? Do not make the recruiter go looking for it. Do not make the recruiter try and like put the pieces together or infer. Make it stupid easy. Your story has to be short and succinct. Practice giving it out loud. Strangers, friends, the wall, your dog, whoever. Don't just say it in your head. You have to say it out loud. It makes a huge difference for some reason. And literally, like, give the recruiter or the hiring manager the exact reasons for why they should advocate for hiring you. Spell it out for them. The way that I think about this is you want to be able to write something where the other person is going to go, oh yeah, that's right. And what they do next is they copy and paste exactly what you wrote and put it in their evaluation. That's the goal. That is the goal. Because again, this takes a lot of work from you, right? What is your story?
Yeah.
If you can clarify that, that's huge. That is so huge. And like, I'm going to go over the practice and the delivery again, because it's so critical. If you're tripping over your own delivery of your own story, that's really distracting for the person on the other side who is hearing it for the first time and trying to follow along. They're going to be distracted. They're already distracted by who, God knows what else is going on in their lives, right? It's your story. Own it. Make it smooth. Smooth is great. If you add in genuine, you'll be a standout.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. You know, we're getting questions in the chat thread, so I'm trying to grab as many as we can here. And Brandy had chimed in saying, I feel very discouraged because I don't know how to verbalize things like this. I don't have a degree, and I've been in a lot of industries despite hearing that it's a good thing to have that, you know, that varied background, and feels like you're going to miss out on something. And this is a, you know, I feel like this is a common thing, you know, like lack of degree has held people back for a very long time. And I think hopefully, finally, we're getting to a point where people are starting to realize that just getting the degree, it doesn't mean you're worthy as a person. It doesn't mean you don't deserve a job if you didn't pay. Oh, sorry, y'all, here's my own bias coming out, but pay an outrageous sum to a four-year institution only to arrive with, you know, something that is not as valuable as you thought. So yeah, I mean, like that's a rough place to be in, especially if you've been in a lot of different industries. And you know what, Kat, you had said something about trying to tell your story. Is that something you would recommend here to try and pull out a through line?
Yeah, I mean, I think the specifics here matter, but you know, as you look back through your life, like there is a story, there's a path there, right? Like, how did you end up here? What were the decisions you made along the way that got you to where you are, big picture? It doesn't have to be like one super clear narrative, but you have to be able to walk someone through really easily sort of the main points in your life and the defining points where you made a decision that, you know, opened one door but closed off another. The why, like, why do you really want to do this, right? Why is this, not just why is this the right role for you, but why do you want to make this pivot onto this new path? And then on your point about degrees and accreditations and all of that, I think this is a place where data's been a really interesting place to be in, especially in tech, because, we have a proliferation of boot camps, online learning, right? In addition, and now we have like some master's programs and, PhD programs, like all of that stuff. There's a real gamut of resources out there. And you can build your own portfolio now. You don't have to rely, right? You can open up a GitHub account and just start committing code. There's a lot of, and I think in a lot of ways, maybe it's actually too overwhelming to have all of those options, right? Like if I'm going to try an online course, which one am I going to pick? It's going to feel really, really overwhelming. And what I would do is just pick one. Do not over optimize. Get started, close your eyes, pick one, go through it, and then reflect on what you liked, what you didn't, and use that to get you to the next spot, right? Or you go through it, you're like, whoa, this is crazy. Cool. That's useful. That's a useful data point. You now have something that you can iterate on.
Yeah.
And it is when I get really overwhelmed thinking about my path, right? All the things I want to do, I just bring it back. I'm like, cool. All of that is great. I'm glad I'm thinking about that somewhere in this emotional brain of mine. That's cool. I can focus on this next step. This is what I can do right now to make a concrete move towards this next step and not let the fear of not doing whatever it is the best possible way, the most efficient or whatever. Just go do something, anything, and use that to and keep doing that little bit.
Oh, loving all of this. And thank you for pointing out, because I feel like this is something that definitely wasn't taught when I was in school, though that seems like 1,000 years ago now. But this idea of trying to make it ridiculously easy for the person reading your resume to understand it. I don't think it was ever quite explained like that, right? That it's not just like, hey, you're setting out like the high points of what's going on. You need there to be a literal breadcrumb trail between them, because, people are reading so many of these in a day, especially if they're reviewing in chunk all of the people that are applying for a specific job. And, Catherine has highlighted really, really well that, you want to point out and you want to highlight what puts you apart. What do you have that no one else has? But I very much appreciate, Kat, you highlighting that idea of like, make it as easy as possible to understand, because you want to make that impression quickly, and you can't make them work for it because they're not going to take the time to.
Yeah. And you doing that work to make it crystal clear, like that's you investing in yourself too, right? You have now done the work, you understand your reason, and you can then really easily adapt that to whoever you're talking to, right? Because you know your core and you're like, oh, well, here's how it applies, because at my core, I am just insanely curious and I just want to keep learning, right? I just want to know why. That, if I'm listening to someone say that, I'm like, awesome. Like, I can teach you what you don't know, right? And you can then take it the rest of the way. That's what I want. That's what anyone wants when they're hiring someone. They want someone who they can then rely on and not have to worry. Yeah. Although we'll talk about that, I suppose, like if that's not what they're looking for, that's a red flag. So
yes, that's totally different. We did to kind of close the loop on the call out that we had. We had a lot of people that started writing in, what their role was. The one that really caught my eye, this person said they're a set designer, an architect for film, visualization and drawings for anything built for a camera. So I think this is really interesting. If I were to pull out something like this, I mean, the first thing I'm looking at is like, you understand you understand how things can be changed. Here's how they are, and here's how we want them to be, and you know how to make the connections between those. Kat, if you were to see this, this resume come across, what would you think of in terms of transferable skills from that? Attention to detail.
I would say that attention to detail, but I would say they can work cross-functionally. They have execution skills, right? Mm-hmm. There is a vision that someone out there put together. They had to go execute on it. Execution is hard. It's really hard. And
it's one thing to plan, it's quite another to do.
And the amount of communication you need and understanding and context and creativity to go from a picture to in real life, that is, I would say, frankly, like, there is a role for you. It might not be as a data analyst, but as a design analyst or a user analyst, right? These are people, as a set designer, or you put together sets, you have to understand how people use them. User flows, usability, user research. I mean, these are all applicable. You just have to, what you have to do is think about concrete examples, right? Like, all right, here's a time when I was given this design and like the flow was terrible. And here's how I talked through and identified these issues and worked with other people to resolve them. Because at the end of the day, what I care about is that we have something really great that is usable and functional and robust.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting overwhelmed from how we're getting amazing advice from Kat on screen. I'm also getting, I'm keeping my eyes on the chat. Mary is coming in here doing the most, sharing advice on some of the places that they're getting education, giving advice about going to recruiter events, something I will also tell you absolutely do. And then Mary coming in clutch truly with like some of the call outs for the set design person.
Awesome.
Working in teams, researching, then implementing, working within timelines, within budgets. Set designers are storytellers. Like, oh, Mary, why aren't you doing this? Like, oh my goodness.
Yes. Mary should happy to see the floor. Yes, that's awesome. And yes, I'll agree with all of that.
Okay. We have about 15 minutes left in today's session. This always goes incredibly quickly, but we're going to try and get to as many questions as we can. So if you have more questions that you would like to ask, please send them in. I've been grabbing them from the chat. So we will try to get to as many as we can. All right, let's talk about, hold on here. I want to get to one of those questions. Oh, this person had said, when you talk about coding, obviously that encompasses a lot of things. In your opinion or in your experience, what languages are most popular right now? Do you think that there are a handful that would be most applicable or most sought after by hiring managers?
Yeah, for data, for any data role, it's a little bit less applicable for data engineering, but still applicable across the board. SQL, it is the least sexy language of all time, maybe. Not quite, but close. But it is the backbone of everything. You want to pull data out of somewhere. It's probably going to be SQL. You want to throw, it is everywhere. Python is great. SQL is forever, hands down, especially when you're starting out, right? When you're starting out or you're in a boot camp, it's going to be flashy. Actually, this is an issue I have with some of the data science boot camps that focus exclusively on Python, but then everyone gets out and it's like, oh, you're testing my SQL skills, because that's actually the thing that gets tested more so than Python. And it's like, oh, well, we spent half a day on that in this 3-month boot camp. Yeah. Right. So SQL's huge. Python is next. Java or TypeScript, something like that. That would be good, as if you are more in the full stack data science or data engineering realm, then a software language would be good as well.
Nice. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's talk about ways that we're trying to make ourselves stand out, especially when it comes, obviously when it comes to our CV, we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but what do you feel really sets that non-traditional candidate apart? Like, what can we do to set ourselves apart from the crowd?
Yeah, so I did mention this a little bit before, but it is definitely worth reiterating. Doing the difficult work of identifying concrete examples from your work history and having some really clear examples of those transferable skills we were talking about, and then practicing delivering each of those as a story, right? So you can smooth and genuine. This just sucks. There's no sugarcoating it. I never want to do it myself. When I make myself do it, I can feel myself trying to gloss over it. Don't. This is important work, and this is you investing in yourself, and doing it now will make it really so much easier for you to be confident going into any interview, because you'll have these clear examples in your head, and then you can adapt those on the fly to whatever questions they ask you. You would be surprised at how few people are able to provide details and concrete examples in interviews. Details are what make your story sort of legitimate and trustworthy from like a interviewer standpoint. The other thing I would say too is be really clear about what you are, and especially not what you are not looking for. This sends a signal that you're a serious candidate, right? It's like, oh, well, what are you looking for? Oh, I just want to break in. It's like,
do you really just want to break in though?
Right, like at what cost, right? Like that's not true. And if it is, then we should talk, because I feel like that shouldn't be the case. Like all of this advice is predicated on like financially and support wise, you have that, right? Like money, anyone who says don't worry about the money has never had to worry about money. So you got to worry about that money first.
Live on like water and sunshine or something, like
maybe, but like, yes, get paid, make a living, be secure there first, right? After that, then you can think about some of these other things. But know what you don't want. Be very clear about that. That also sends a really good signal that you're a serious candidate, right? You are
looking for blank.
Yeah, you set boundaries. This is what I'm about. That's really important.
Yeah,
it's really important.
Huge. I love this. Okay, so if we're coming back around to finding that fit, right? Especially when it is your first role in data. Job descriptions can vary incredibly wildly. Titles are not the same from org to org. And there are a lot of people that had questions about if you do anything in particular when you screen for those open job positions, to try and make sure that the role that you're looking for, or the role that you're looking at specifically, is going to make you challenged but not swamped. Because I feel like all of us understand there's going to be a learning curve. You get someplace, you have that like, I don't know anything moment, but you don't want to be in that forever. So do you have any tips for this person?
Yeah. So on the job description itself, it's a little hard to screen that way. But as like a very general rule of thumb, the more specifics there are in the job description, the more clearly defined that role likely is in reality. The exception here is when you're listing required skills. So if I see something that has like, you need to know Java, TypeScript, Python, SQL, React, and have 10 years of experience, that to me says they have no idea what they really want. And they just want like something that would make me go in and be like, okay, if I interview here, I'm going to have to ask them some really specific questions about what sort of experience have they had with data analysts or data scientists or whatever in the past, right? Have they ever had anyone in that role before? Is that something, is it new, right? How do they envision this actually being used in real life? And if they can't, it moves on to the interview, it moves on to the interview real quick. And that's when things get really interesting. Like I have to say, you have to interview them right back. This is, I mean, it's like a marriage. You're going to be spending a lot of time at this company. Is it the right fit for you? They might want you, they might not want you. Okay. At some point, it's like, who cares? There are other companies out there. You have to find the right thing for you. And where are you in your life, right? Again, there's some work you have to do to know your story, know what you want. What are your lines in the sand? And don't be afraid to ask the hard questions directly.
Yes.
And look and see what their responses are, right? Don't cede that control and that power to the interviewer. So I remember in an interview when I was interviewing, and I was talking to this person that was assigned to like recruit, and I was asking about their culture. You know, there had been some stuff in the news, and this person responded really defensively and was like, well, it's not like we're crying at our desks every night. I was like, oh, thank you so much for letting me know. That's super interesting. And also super informative, because that's not my baseline. That's not, like,
don't
no,
worry,
thank you.
You don't cry every day.
Right. I'm like, oh, thank God. Okay, cool. Like, as long as I only cry 4 out of the 5 nights, I'm good.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
that's golden. Yeah, definitely the job you should take. Absolutely.
So really, and another thing is like, ask them very specifically, what paths are there to grow from this role? Can they come up with any answers? And then, cool, thank you for that. Can I speak with someone who has gone through that path?
Yes.
Why or why not? So is it just a thing that we have on a piece of paper, or is this something that they actually follow through on?
Yeah.
And if I can't talk to anyone, why? Right? That's another thing that like really is a red flag for you. Asking them, you know, hey, are there people in your org that you really admire? Right? Are there colleagues in similar positions that I can connect with? Can you speak to any of them? Right? Any and all of them. And if they're not willing to put you in touch, that's another red flag.
Why?
Why? Yeah, why? And don't assume that they know better, right? If something is vague, ask them to clarify, ask them for an example or two. If they can't get you examples, you know, again, ask yourself why. And then lastly, I use this as my North Star when it comes to big professional decisions, which is what opportunity will allow me to learn the most and open up the most number of doors for me in the future. And actually, as I say this formulation, I don't actually like the most, because the most, again, makes it more pressure filled, right? Like, what opportunity can I just learn a ton from? And it will open up a ton of doors for me in the future, right? And do that relative to another concrete alternative that you have.
Like trying to broaden your options as opposed to just like either narrow or still maintain the same pipeline.
Yeah. And like for me, like learning and my own professional growth, right? That's huge for me. That's a huge driver for me. Find yours, right? It could be that, it could be similar, it could be something completely different. But
no, that makes sense too. I mean, like my drive in my career is to be happy with everything that I do, to have a job that I take pride in. And I have found that, which is wonderful. But you're right. You know, not everybody's drive is, I want to be the best. I want to go into management. I want to do this. And that's fine. That's totally fine. It's still scary to figure out what your thing is, like what you want. But like, I think it's very important to keep highlighting things like this, how like not every path needs to lead to the C-suite. Not every path needs to be wholly vertical all of the time. No backtracks, no deviations. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too that, you know, as you look through these job descriptions and then you talk to hiring managers or recruiters, right? If there are no other data people in an organization, it doesn't matter what the job title says that you're applying for. You're gonna just be an overall data person. So the job title really doesn't mean a ton.
Yeah.
It's just an indication of like, these are the general interests that we want. And then it's like, once you get in, there's no way you're going to be like, oh, well, that's not in my job description, so like, I'm not going to do that. That's not how it works. And you're not going to want to do that anyways, right? So take the job description as more of a suggestion in that
Like
case, especially if the company is smaller, as a jumping off point. Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. Well, and it bears repeating too. Like, when people are drawing up these job descriptions and saying what they want to find in a candidate, they are describing their unicorn. Like they're describing some person that may or may not honestly exist, and that's what they want. But let's be real, like, most people don't end up with the absolute unicorn in their roles, because what makes it a unicorn is they probably want somebody that's going to do it for free. So think about that when you're looking at these job descriptions. It's a wish list. If your kid hands you a Christmas list for Santa, and there's like thousands and thousands of dollars of stuff on there, they're not going to get everything. They'll get like within reason, but like, think of it that way. It's a wish list.
That's a great analogy. It's a Christmas wish list. It's a holiday wish list. Yeah.
Yes. Holiday. Thank you. Not everybody does Christmas. I need to be better at this. Okay. So we have 3 minutes left. I want to make sure we saved a little bit of time to talk a little bit more about GameChanger. Some of Kat's answers to these questions, y'all, were absolutely killing me. Crushing it sustainably, honestly, I think it's one of my favorite ones. But let's talk about your tips for someone who's interviewing. Can you expand on these for us?
Yes. So, right. Keeping a growth mindset, you're going to fail. You're going to come up against rejection and failure. You're going to wish you said something differently, or be like, oh, I was rambling. Cool. Fine. Learn a lesson for next time. The goal is not to never make mistakes. The goal is to not make the same exact one twice. So you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to make new mistakes you can't even possibly contemplate. That's cool. That's all learning. You should want to do that. If you don't make mistakes, it means you're moving really, really conservatively. And for data and tech, probably means you're moving too slow. So you got to embrace it. Growth mindset. And it comes down to like just the language you use too. It's really, and the Growth Mindset book by Carol Dweck is amazing. In addition to Grit, another great book. Another one is Interviewing Cuts Both Ways, right? Like, interview them back. Is this a place where you want to spend like a significant percentage of your time and energy, right? Are these people that you think you can not just like get along with, but learn from and like use as, incorporate into your community? Do they share similar values as you? And then practice your story, do the work for you. So then you can be better informed about what you want going forward, so you can say it better. And you're going to stumble. It's not going to come out perfect the first time, the first 100 times, and that is okay. And if you feel overwhelmed, just take one small step. Doesn't matter what it is. Give yourself some grace. Doesn't matter. Just take that one step. Just do a little thing and keep pushing along.
Thank you. Kat, I just want to say, we are out of time for today, but I just want to say thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I knew when we talked the first time a couple of days ago, this is going to be great, but this is truly a really fabulous afternoon. I have enjoyed this so much. To all of our attendees, thank you, y'all. Like, I have a job because you are here, but thank you so much for the participation. I was loving all the connections I was seeing happen in the chat thread. And it makes these events so much more personal. So thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here. Kat, is there anything you'd like to share before we leave today?
No, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Mary for being just amazing on the advice and the chat.
Yes,
That's
Mary.
awesome.
Mhm.
And, just feel free to hit me up. I wish you all the best of luck. And, if we are hiring at GameChanger, we will have some data roles coming up. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And, at the end of the day, your non-traditional backgrounds can really be your superpowers. And it takes more work. It takes, certainly it's harder, but it's worth it and you're worth it. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Kat. If this was your first Power to Fly event, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have met you, and we hope that we'll see you again soon. If you are one of our frequent flyers, it was lovely to see you again. There's going to be some great programming we're bringing you in the next several days. So I put some links in the chat thread to where you can check out GameChanger's company page, check out some of those open roles that Kat was talking about. You can also check out our upcoming event schedule, so that way you can start registering now. And don't forget, we're having our August summit is happening in 2 weeks. So definitely go check that out. It's for disabilities and disadvantages. As somebody within the neurodivergent community, I love this month. I love this session or this summit topic. So I hope that we'll see many of you there. Thank you again. I hope everybody has a safe, happy, and healthy Thursday, and we can't wait to see you.